Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel once again. Today we're going to be doing something I've been meaning to do for a very long time now. So I'm finally going to get around to putting this together. What we're going to be doing is a how to drift series, starting from the very basics all the way up to advanced techniques for tandem drifting or even points drifting and all that sort of stuff. So today we're just going to keep it simple with the very bare basics of how to start drifting, and it's sort of going to be a guide for drifting on a steering wheel, but you'll be able to use all the tips and tricks for controller as well if you're trying to learn how to drift. So the car I've chosen to start this off with is just a completely stock Mustang. I believe it's a 2005 model. Let me just have a look. 2013, sorry. The Shelby GT500. I've picked this car because it's got quite a lot of weight to it, which means we'll be able to play around with weight transfers quite nicely, and because it has quite soft suspension, it'll give you a really good understanding of how to balance the car and just get used to controlling how the weight will move around when you're trying to drift the car. And like I said, it's completely stock, and I've told us for the weight factor, and it also has a really nice amount of power, so you can pretty much drift most corners without any problems. So we're just going to jump straight onto the track. So we're on Silverstone, mainly because there's two really good sections to practice on here. So the first one is not what you would think it would be, not the typical drift section, but these two really tight right and left handers just up ahead here. So if you're going to start trying to drift, the very first thing you need to do is understand how to power slide the car. Once you can do that, then you'll be set to trying to get the car sideways before the apex of the corner and start actually drifting. So what you want to do is find out whatever car you're in. You don't have to use a stock car, you can use whatever you want. But what I would recommend you do is just drive the corner first, and don't drive your typical racing line. Drive it so you come out of the corner sort of in the middle of the track. So you want to hit your apex and then sort of be as closer to the middle of the track on the corner exit. Now why you want to do that will become apparent in a few minutes once we go back to the other side. So you want to try and drive reasonably quick, not on the limit, but just around the corner. Don't push the exit too wide, just so you get a feel of how much speed you need for the corner. Oop, you've got a little bit of oversteer on the exit there then. So the main purpose for that is not using up the whole track width on the exit. Just get used to the car speed coming into the corner. And then once you get to the corner apex, what you want to do is just jab that throttle nice and hard and induce that oversteer. And then because you're not aiming for the end of the track, you'll have a lot of room on the road to try and maintain that power slide. Now power slides are generally reasonably easy, especially on low speed corners like this, so this is really good to practice on. So you want to come up, get the car turned in on the apex, and then just gas it. Get those rear wheels spinning. And when you straighten the car up, you don't want to be too aggressive with your throttle. If you lift all the way out of the throttle when the car's starting to straighten up, so when you're straightening up, you don't want to back completely out of the throttle. Just ease out of it nice and gently, and you'll get a nice smooth transition from slip to grip. Just like that. You never want to back all the way out of it. I'll see if I can demonstrate that for a second. You'll see how much more aggressively the car will start to transfer the other way. Oops, a little bit fast. And I didn't use the steering to straighten the car up then either, which doesn't help. Whoops, and I've cooked that one. There, you want to be nice and smooth on the throttle and just get the car on the apex and then nail the gas and just get the cars to break loose on the rear end. And then just practice getting a nice smooth slide so you just get a nice transition into the slide and then nice smooth transition so you get the car back under control again. And then once you got that down, then you can really start having fun and start the drift initiations. And we're going to go over a few techniques here that you can use from beginner entry techniques, which is going to be the handbrake, and then we'll go over some advanced techniques using weight transfer and shift lock and all that really cool stuff. So the first one, nice and easy. So you want to come up with good speed coming up to the corner, pull the handbrake, and then just continue that power slide coming out of the corner. And then practice your power slide on the second corner again. Don't worry too much about linking the corners together yet, just make sure you get heaps of practice on just really holding a nice smooth slide. So we'll pull the handbrake. Whoops, a little bit too much angle. Now when I pull the handbrake, I do normally apply the brake pedal as well, just because it tends to keep the car nice and stable as you're coming into the corner, and it'll also help you wash off excess speed if you're coming in a little bit too quick. And when you're drifting, it's all about trying to maintain that nice momentum, just so you can have a nice smooth arc as you go around the corner. Whoops. That's ideally what you want. The perfect drift for me is just using the car, the weight of the car, not even so much the power of the car, but just throwing the car into a nice slide and just holding on that slip and just have a nice smooth arc through the corner. So I'll do a couple more handbrake entries here. Obviously when you handbrake entry, the more aggressively you turn into the corner when you pull the handbrake, the faster the car's going to spit sideways. So to start with, you'll probably want to try very, very little movement on the steering wheel, just so it gets a nice slow movement into the corner. Because if you go too aggressive too quickly, you can find you'll spit yourself off in the opposite direction. So just come up nice and easy. Nice and easy on the throttle. You only really need to apply full juice when you're coming out of the corner. So that's the handbrake entry. Very easy to learn, very easy to use if you have a handbrake, but if you don't, there are some other techniques you can use. So we'll come up here and I'll show you the shift lock technique. So you want to come up and a gear higher, brake, and then downshift without rev matching. It didn't really work too well there. Normally you've got to be a little bit more aggressive on the steering because it's not going to lock the rear wheels up as good as a handbrake does, but it will give you a nice initiation if you get it right. And sometimes car setup will help a lot with this as well. If you have a locked diff with higher deceleration values, it tends to work a lot better. So we'll come up from third, turn it in. Oh, no, I'm just getting understeer. So this car is probably not a good example of a shift lock. It's just really heavy and just wants to push. So shift lock is a more of an advanced technique. I normally use it in combination with a Scando flick or a Scandinavian flick. Just try this one more time. Yeah, no, it just doesn't want to go. Let's try it one more. Might be able to get it happening. I think I'm just going a little bit too fast. It's just causing the car to understeer rather than oversteer. But basically what we're doing here, if I pull the telemetry up and show you real quick, when we're in third gear and we shift down to the second and let the clutch off, the rear wheels will sort of break traction momentarily as the engine RPM tries to match the new gear speed. I'll just show you that again. as soon as we pop the clutch, you can see those rear tyres are getting a nice quick jolt, like almost like a handbrake pull. Oh, and you can see it's just still just trying to induce understeer. Yeah, it's not going to work in this car. So we'll go to our next initiation technique, which is going to be the Scandinavian flick. So what we want to do is line the car up. You want to come up to the corner, sort of in the middle of the track, and then slow down, and then give it a good hard sharp turn in. A little bit more difficult than a handbrake entry, because you really have to have a good line into the corner, good speed to be able to carry the drift arc all the way through. Just balance that throttle. So turn out and then turn in. As you can see, you don't need a lot of throttle to hold the car sideways on the corner entry. You mainly use your steering there, so you want to have a little bit of load on your steering wheel as you come into the corner, almost as if you were turning into the corner normally. But obviously, because you've thrown the car in, it is going to slide. And then you just power slide it out, just like that. Oops, I got shit falling over off my desk. Okay, so the next one is just the power oversteer. So because our car's got a lot of power, we won't be able to do this all the time. You come up to the corner, come up a little bit slower than usual, and just gun it from before the apex. It's essentially a power slide, just you're doing it before the apex. That's probably a good way to just to practice getting sideways before the apex, and continue it out of the corner. And obviously the other really nice and easy technique is the clutch kick, which everyone should be able to do. Normally everyone runs a clutch. So just approach the corner, bring the revs up and drop the clutch, and it will just spit that rear end sideways. And again, you don't want to be turning in too aggressively. The more you turn in, the harder the car's going to flick. So you want to just do it nice and gently, come up with a nice gentle speed for the corner, because you are somewhat going to accelerate as you do this. Nice and smooth. Yeah, so back to the shift lock. I normally use the shift lock technique when I'm coming into a deceleration entry, and I'll use it in combination with a bit of a weight transfer. I'll just show you that real quick. We'll get into third gear. You see, with a bit of a weight transfer and the shift lock, gives you a really nice entry into the corner. So our next one is going to be linking the corners together. So once you've sort of gotten used to getting the car into the corner, into the drift, and out the other end, what you want to do is just hold it nice and steady. You can dab the brake and get the car to weight transfer, or just lift completely out of the gas, like we said you don't want to do when you're just trying to straighten up. And just sort of don't be too gentle straightening the wheel up. You kind of need it to give it that little bit of a flick, especially if you're using normal steering. And normally once your tyres are really hot, the car's just going to try and swing the opposite direction anyway, so the transition really isn't all that hard. It's just a matter of getting used to how to balance the car going into the corner and just maintaining that on the corner exit as well. But once you master coming the corner entry, you should be like pretty ready for when the transition comes. So I normally look at the horizon, and normally when you're cornering, the horizon sort of moves at a constant rate, but when the car's about to change direction, the horizon will actually stop where it is. So I'll show you that real quick, as it just gives you a good indication of when to get ready for the car changing direction. So you can see the horizon is smoothly moving to the left, and now it's stopped, which means the car's getting ready to go the opposite direction. And I'll just go over one other little technique that I've been using here. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've been riding the brake pedal a little bit on the corner entry. So not only does this help wash off a bit of speed, but it can also help hold the rear end sideways. Because as we're on the brake, the weight's going to shift forwards, which means there's going to be less weight on the rear wheels, which makes the rear end just sort of hold a slide, and you can actually extend the entry arc into the corner if you don't have a handbrake by using the brake pedal. And that's the other thing too, you can use the handbrake to extend the arc on your drift. So the longer you hold your handbrake, the straighter the arc is going to be on the corner entry. And our tyres are pretty much shot now, getting really slippery, nice and yellow. Alright, so we'll do one drift run through here with all those techniques that we've learned. So I'm going to do it shift lock, weight transfer, nice handbrake to extend the drift arc so we're right on the apex. Ride that brake pedal just to wash off a little bit of speed and hold a nice angle. And push it right out wide and just ease out of the throttle to straighten the car up. And hopefully you'll find some of those tips useful. There is going to be a few other, I'm guessing maybe 2 or 3 more videos just going over different tips and tricks. But hopefully you found this one pretty useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more if you want some more drifting action and tutorials and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!